All right, let's dive in. Joe Musso, pleased to be alongside my guys, Lige Douzable, Ryan Harris, Emery Hunt. Fellas, you could really come up with your thoughts here at halftime and copy and paste them here. Second half, we did see some resistance, but far too little, far too late from the Kansas City Chiefs. We said at half, this was the group up front, and they should be proud of what they did. Defensive line for the Philadelphia Eagles, how pivotal today?
Massive. They essentially, from the very first whistle, set the tone for this game. Josh Sweat, Milton Williams. We didn't hear Jalen Carter's name a lot. That's because he was double-teamed a lot. Jalen Hunt on the outside because Nolan Smith actually got banged up, missed a few plays. Jalen Hunt came in and had to have a sack. So the dominance, not just in the pass rush game, but in the run game as well. We talked about it, Moose, at halftime. I believe the Chiefs had 3 carries for 3 yards. And I told you that was a key for me in this game. When the Philadelphia Eagles only had 6 or 7 guys in the box, were the Chiefs going to be consistent in trying to run the football? Even when they tried, it didn't amount to much, right? So that was the key. They punished the Chiefs' offensive line, and that's how they won this game.
They out-physicaled them. It was multiple players from different angles, which means that you can't schematically stop it. And then Cooper DeJean's interception. I know it's just one little play, but that put Patrick Mahomes in a place we haven't seen him in a Super Bowl ever. He was gun-shy. He wasn't able to make the throw. His eyes were down on the defensive line. That's all you got to say. The Eagles' defensive line played so well, Patrick Mahomes wasn't looking downfield. I mean, that is what happened. But Cooper DeJean's early interception for a touchdown really just separated these two teams, and it never became close after that.
And to build further on that, when you go even further back, outside of Cooper DeJean, you look at what these guys did in the secondary in terms of we barely saw Darius Slade called his name, so that means he was locking down coverage. Quinyon Mitchell, we even called his name because he was locking down coverage. And Avonte Maddox probably had the biggest play of the second half with the 4th down stop, playing the out route perfectly, knocking the ball away. And to me, every level of this defense did a great job. You guys talked about the defensive line, stopping the run. The linebackers did what they need to do. Zach Bond had an interception. In the secondary, we just spoke about taking a lot of big plays away. So this was a complete game, dominant game from the defensive side of football for Philadelphia.
A second Lombardi for the city of Philadelphia and for the Eagles as they become the first team since the 1985 Bears to tout a top 2 rushing attack and a top 2 total defense. It really played itself out in this game, and I think you said an important word, Ryan, physicality. That's been the calling card of this Eagles team, but did you expect to see such a lopsidedness in that aspect of this game, the willingness at the point of attack?
Did not expect to see that lopsidedness. And conversely, when these two teams faced off in the last Super Bowl, it was the Chiefs that were knocking the heck out of the Eagles. But clearly the Eagles watched that film, were talked about in terms of the physicality in their meeting rooms. But it wasn't just on defense, fellas. I mean, this was on offense, too. The offensive line for the Eagles were dominating all game, receivers creating separation. That's what you need in big games. They took that task and that challenge to be more physical than the Chiefs who have been here, and they succeeded in a big way.
I mean, it's funny when you look at a team just getting physically dominated on both sides of the ball, offensively, defensively, and the Chiefs usually have the best counter in football, but we didn't see them have a counter or an answer for anything that was going on. So Philly went out there offensively. It wasn't about the run game. The rush attempts were there. The big part of what helped them get together offensively on the ground was Jalen Hurts' legs, and then we saw the deep ball as a result. The deep passing game was where it needed to be, and on defense, man, we talked about this at halftime, making the plays that are there to be made. They didn't miss any opportunity to turn the ball over. They, again, out-Chiefs the Chiefs in this contest.
I hesitate to say it, so I'll instead ask it. Is unprepared a fair word to use for this Chiefs team today?
It's a fair question to ask, Moose, because we were talking about this upstairs. We were wondering what Andy Reid was doing, right? You stated it multiple times, Moose, on 3rd and 9. They're running 20-yard routes, knowing that the offensive line can't hold up in protection. You're not helping Patrick Mahomes out. And to Ryan's point, once you start getting hit as a quarterback, instead of looking down the field, you're looking at the rush. And Patrick Mahomes was looking at the rush this entire game. So this game, you know what it reminded me of, fellas? It reminded me of the 2020 Super Bowl. Because that's the same way the Chiefs lost versus Tampa Bay Bucks. They got out physical at the line of scrimmage. Their defensive line with Shaq Barrett and Jason Pierre-Paul got after those tackles just like Josh Sweat and Jalen Hunt did today, and then Milton Williams from the interior defensive line. So We saw the Chiefs make some adjustments after that. That's when they drafted Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith. Now it seems like they have a real issue at the tackle position. Where do they go from here as far as trying to mitigate or fix that issue?
I just didn't like it how they were going to continue to go out there in 3, 4, 5 receiver sets, not help those 2 tackles, not put those 2 tight ends out there, and not try to run the football to at least calm the rush down and get yourself back in the ball game. We were laughing and joking watching the game saying, hey, they even crossed 50 yet, not knowing they really hadn't crossed the 50 yet until late, and that is unheard of. But when you try to find ways to get back into a ball game, you get back to basics like Ryan talked about at halftime. We didn't see the Chiefs do that. They just went ahead and tried, hey, we're going to find a way to make a way with our shotgun offense and our 4 wide receiver sets, and the Eagles just teed off on these guys, play in, play out.
Plenty to sink our teeth into as it pertains to the Chiefs' failures in this game, but this is a celebration of the game we love and a celebration on this day of the Philadelphia Eagles. I think it also changes the way we say the name Jalen Hurts. Spectacular again on a Super Bowl stage. Comes up short in his last against the Chiefs, but gets the confetti this time. Ryan, when you take a look at the numbers and beyond those numbers, the performance, that steadiness that he's been for his team all season long, what stood out to you in the way that Jalen Hurts picked apart the Chiefs in this one?
Perseverance and payback. He was clearly going to persevere through the past loss in the Super Bowl. He said he'd be back. They are back, and they won. He needed a couple pieces around him, but he also made key plays at key moments, running the football, pinpoint passing. That throw to Devontae Smith, that was the dagger. That was the nail in the coffin. But he was ready for that moment. The game wasn't too big for him. He matured in a huge way. That beat him in the Super Bowl previously got to watch him win. That's payback, and that's perseverance. That's Jalen Hurts.
To me, the biggest thing that I took from Jalen Hurts' performance was after throwing that interception, right, only up 7-0, the Chiefs could have had all the momentum, right? He never wandered, right? His confidence didn't lag. You talked about it, Ryan, the big pass plays down the field to Devontae Smith. Even when his defense turned it over for him, the crosser to A.J. Brown, just knowing where to go with the football. But I think the biggest thing that he did is when Steve Spagnuolo continued to send pressure, he had some struggles in the first half, was him being able to get out of some trouble and use his legs and scamper and get first downs on pivotal third downs to keep the offense out there on the field. It was almost like a copy and paste from what he did 2 years ago. He did have the 1 turnover 2 years ago. He had it this game, but it was the way he responded and bounced back. The pivotal plays on third downs to keep his offense on the field and the big-time throws down the field.
Everyone talks about, oh, well, a quarterback has it, but they can't quantify it. But you know it when you see it. Hurts has it. We've seen it time and time again. A guy that got benched in college, came back, didn't transfer, got better when he got his opportunity, but when they needed him the most, he stepped right into the SEC title game and got them that win against Georgia. Then we saw him go to Oklahoma, finish second in the Heisman Trophy to Joe Burrow, go to the NFL, have to start as a backup. Now he's in the starter, 2 Super Bowls, got a Super Bowl victory. But in this ball game, overcoming the adversity of throwing the interception, and the biggest thing that I took away from here is that he knew where to go with the football every time. He had an answer for everything that was thrown at him, and he took what the defense gave him. He didn't try to go big game hunting like a lot of quarterbacks do. He really was able to work himself down the field, and then ultimately the big plays came.
From your mouth to their ears, Super Bowl MVP Jalen Hurts here.
Oh, yeah.
Come on, hey, we made your money tonight.
Baby.
This table made your money tonight.
This fella's cleaned up. If you were watching pregame, if you weren't, you know where to find us here on CBS Sports HQ. So much more to dig into here. And immediately from, that talking out of the side of the mouth about Jalen Hurts, a lot of that same can be said about the head coach and Nick Sirianni, who they just might have tried to fire again. Not after this one, but it has been up in the air. It has been touch and go at times, and these are the types of days that define careers. What impressed you about, like we said on the other side, the game plan here from Sirianni?
I would say he probably had a lot of pressure after being here 2 years ago, not getting it done, the redemption to get it done this time. And you talked about it, Moose. It was just like every other week they were trying to fire this guy, right? 2 years ago, he goes to the Super Bowl. They start 2-2 this year. They're talking about at the bye he might get fired. I'm like, this guy's been to the playoffs every single year. You know how many teams would pray to good coach?
It shows you that there's no one way to find a head coach, and everyone coaches differently. And this is his way. It works for that team. Will it work for all 32? Who knows? All the other 31? Who knows? But for Philly, they got the right guy. He was able to strike the right chords and get this team playing on one accord, going in the right direction. So, yes, he's an outstanding head coach.
He's the happiest person in that locker room because if he loses this game, how do you keep a locker room when you lose 2 Super Bowls in 3 years? So now he doesn't have to worry about any of that. Now he's worrying about where he's eating dinner, what time the parade is, and this is the kind of conversation Nick Sirianni wouldn't let himself have until right now. And so for him, there's less worries, more joy, and now more buy-in next year without having to do anything because you're going to be talking about when you're getting your rings.
You know, we had 2 weeks to do it as we're trying to design game scripts that we see victorious on both sides. And it was hard to look at an Eagles game script that didn't have Saquon Barkley totaling something in the triple digits. Finishes with 57 rushing yards and plenty of that coming sort of amassed. I won't call it garbage time, but overtime. It wasn't what they leaned into and still so dominant. How were they able to remain so multiple, Emery, in your eyes offensively today?
Because he's such a dynamic player that you had to account for him as a receiver, which he has some success catching the football, but also his pass pro was where it needed to be. He picked up a couple of key blitzes as well. So he was knocking on the door on all 3 facets in terms of being a complete back in this ball game. And we saw him start to rip off those bigger runs in the second half because he was able to get those 2 or 3 yard gainers in the first half. But I love the fact that they stayed with the rush attempts. The yards weren't there, but they came in the second half, but he was finding success in other ways.
And he attacked the line of scrimmage with physicality every single rep. Sometimes when a running back doesn't get going, they start slowing down, they start moving their shoulders, trying to look for a hole. Not Saquon tonight. He was firing at that line of scrimmage. Even when he wasn't getting the ball in motion, he was moving like he was going to get the ball. That takes the eyes of the defense. He impacted the game in a huge way.
Because they were able to stay balanced because of what we talked about in pregame. And I said that Steve Spagnuolo is going to take away what you want to do well. And Drew Tranquil had a heck of a game for the Kansas City Chiefs. He single-handedly was trying to mitigate what Saquon Barkley was going to do. But you got to give a shout-out to the offensive line because we were talking about this upstairs. There were times where Jalen Hurts was back there patting the ball 5, 6 seconds, and was able to throw the ball down the field. And then to Jalen Hurts, to give him credit, there was times when he saw the blitz was coming and knew exactly where to go with the football because Steve Spagnuolo is going to try to speed up your clock every single time. And that's why I think this was a big mental hurdle for Jalen Hurts, and he passed with flying colors, more specifically in that second quarter and in the third quarter. That pass to Devontae Smith was against pressure, right? The pass to A.J. Brown, the offensive line did a really good job picking up the pressure, which allowed him to win on that drag route to score that touchdown. So they were able to be balanced on offense because of the offensive line play and protection, but then also Jalen Hurts knowing exactly where to go with the football.
Gotta say, hard to lose when you're playing with this crew, fellas. Fantastic work throughout the night and throughout the season. We are just scratching the surface, just getting started here on CBS Sports HQ. Straight ahead, more coming from Super Bowl City. We'll take you out to New Orleans. We got sights, we've got sounds, we've got it all coming up as we take a look at the Eagles in Super Bowls. They capture a second, a win and an atonement for past sin. They take down the Chiefs in a lopsided Super Bowl win. More to come here on CBS Sports HQ. Straight ahead, the celebration is on. From Sirianni to Saquon, we'll hear from them all on CBS Sports.